So yeah, and like I said, we all, if you're in a relationship for any period of time, you're gonna experience not being present, for whatever reason. And so yeah, I got called out and I work on it. I do.
Baby, you don't know what you do to me. Between me and you, I feel a chemistry. I won't let no one come and take your place. Cause the love you give, it can't be replaced. There's no one else can like you do. That's why I'm in my love with you. I wanna please you in any way I can. I wanna share my world.
Hey everybody, this is Karina Amber, your co-host for Dating and Marriage Perspectives. Damn good to the last word. Welcome back to our show for our fans and our returners. And if you're new to our show, welcome. We hope you stay a little while. Down below, please comment, subscribe, and like our show before we get into our topic. And here's our topic. So last week, we had our beautiful guest who's with us again this time. So thank you for being with us, Nicole Simmons, who leads her own podcast, Take Action Podcast Show. And last week, ladies, we were talking about gaining your self-confidence back after a breakup. We've all been there. Breakup happens. We're questioning ourselves. We're doing self-talk, not very productive self-talk, right? And then we ended the show with this thought out there that we didn't get to expand on, but this is why we're here today. That sometimes these flags, I'm not going to call them red flags just yet. They could turn into red flags, but these flags show up in a relationship, in our relationship, and we don't pay attention to them. We're kind of like, it's not that bad. We negotiate. He's only done this once. Well, let me give her some time. Might be different next time. So anyway, these flags show up. We don't address them right away. And then we might be in a position where the breakup does happen and we're like, I didn't see this coming. Well, maybe you didn't see it coming, but these breadcrumbs were being laid out and you just didn't address it. So this is the topic for today. So anyone who's in a relationship, this is for you. Maybe things are going really well. You're not questioning anything. I guess that's a good thing. But if you're not questioning anything, why aren't you questioning anything? And maybe you're just going through the motions with your relationship and you're just kind of there with your partner. Like, Groundhog Day kind of thing. We don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
No.
Okay, I talked enough. That's the context. This is where we are. Amber, what's our first question?
All right. So Miss Nikki or Karina, have you guys ever been in a relationship where you haven't been present or your partner's not present? Have you guys dealt with that before? I would imagine we all have, but
yeah, I think it's I want to say normal. Maybe I can say normal. I think it's something that if you've been in a relationship any length of time where you say like we're in a relationship and it doesn't have to be necessarily one that's toxic or unhealthy per se. I think there are moments where you're not present, because life happens. You get busy and you get focused on other things. And just depending on what season of life you're in, you may not always show up and be present in your relationship. And so I think sometimes those are the times where it can be a little dangerous if we're there too long, because those are the times where you can miss things, especially when you talk about being present, not being present with yourself, but just not noticing maybe even changes in the relationship. That's where your partner might be going through some things too, right? So I think that we all can experience that, especially if you've been in a relationship longer than a year. I think it's something that naturally happens. But I think for us, when recognizing those moments, right, those high stress moments or high demand moments, depending on your career, if especially if you have children together, I mean, there's many different seasons and opportunities for us to not be present. So I think it's just being mindful of those times with yourself to know, okay, I'm not all the way there. I'm here, but I'm not here, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I have kind of a follow-up question to that too, because especially for our younger girls that are listening and women that are listening, the ones in their 20s, because we had somebody who was younger than us on before, and she talked about a new thing called situationship. So I love how you're calling it, relationship, but now this younger generation is calling it a situationship where you're dating. Go for it. Go, okay, go.
Wait,
What is
Wait,
it? What is
Nicole,
the
do you know what situationship is?
I never heard of that term.
We didn't either.
What is this? What is this? Help me, school me on this. What's a relationship?
We got school. Trina. Trina was our host. In your 20s is her handle.
Yes, you're not in a relationship, you're dating, there's no commitment, and you're doing everything like you're in a relationship, but there's no commitment. Am I saying that right, Kay?
Yeah, it's open. It's open, and you're not necessarily seeing anybody else. You're not. It's just, I should say it's just because I don't get the situationship.
But usually
There's no label to anything. You're in this situation with this person.
But one person tends to think that they're in a relationship, I think, and the other person doesn't feel like that. So it kind of, to me, starts to show, the progression, like you were saying. Are they still present? Is this a red flag that you're seeing? I mean, I don't know if you had ever heard of situationships, but to me, when I was thinking about these red flags showing up, I can see how a situationship, if you don't know that you're in it, there's probably a bunch of red flags, I would think.
I mean, I think the title itself is a red flag.
I know, as soon as you call it situationship, get out.
Like, we're in a situation now,
Yeah.
I think, I know that, different terms, different things that happen with different generations, but there are some principles to relationships that never change, and it doesn't matter what generation it is. Communication, the principles of communicating in a relationship with the person that you say you are interested in or you care about is always going to be a principle that has to be into play if you're going to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
These situations that we might find ourselves in, can't be void of communication. Like if both people, like you said, right, that both people have to know, like, this is where we are and this is where we're going. And I'm not, and this is just me, I'm not for, we're just going to be in a situation and there's no direction.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So would you do that in other areas of your life? Where you just, well, what about your career or some goals that you have? You just, well, I'm just in a situation, but you have no defined goals. You have no direction. You're just kind of aimlessly going throughout your life. Like that doesn't, you know what I mean? That doesn't promote growth. Yeah. That doesn't promote self-confidence. It doesn't promote, being able to be in touch with yourself because you have nothing to attach your purpose to.
Yeah.
So I understand situations, but I think in itself, it's a red flag if you're with somebody that they don't want to define anything.
Yeah.
You might need to revisit, that situation.
Yes, right.
That's damn good to the last word right there.
Right. Yeah. Revisit that one because that's wow. Yeah. We learn something new every day, I guess.
We had not heard of it. We were like, oh, what? Yeah. And both of us were like, that is not gonna work.
No, it really doesn't and we've all been 20, right? We've all been 19, especially on this, in this circle, we've been there. And it's a convenient word. For
I like
that particular,
yes.
It's convenient, there's no standard. It's just do it, whatever you want to do. Yes. And I think when we're talking about being, to kind of bring it back to being present, I think it's really important that you do put certain parameters and standards and live by those standards for yourself, because that's a parameter that you can use to check in with yourself.
Yes.
So like I said, yeah, we all experience not being present at some point in time, but how do you know when you're not? There has to be some type of parameter, personal standards and values that you have. But if you're just going in and be like, well, what it is, it's whatever. We're just in a situation. What is that saying about your personal standards and boundaries to really protect your heart? And this is why we get in these situations of, relationships where there are some flags. There's something waving, but you ain't paying attention because you're just in a situation.
Right. Yeah. It's like those car dealership.
Yeah. I mean, I get it and I understand, different terms, yet at the same time, it's definitely an ingredient to a recipe that's going to lead you to a cake that you do not want to eat.
Yeah.
I like cakes. What does not being present look like, feel like in your marriage?
Ooh. Who's going first on that one?
Well, we already did it. We did an episode already for that on me.
You said I'm up, right?
You just to reiterate before, like my husband called me out on it and he wasn't so happy, but unfortunately he did it when we had like a date night and I thought it was just us going to dinner and and having a nice time. And I had said, shit, he should have just told me in the car. He shouldn't have waited till, we get there and then he just vomits everything out. So, go watch that episode.
I have to watch that one. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah. You will. If you weren't on the other side of it.
Yeah, on the other side, it don't feel too good.
Right.
It's like you upset. No, now I'm upset. So we both.
That's right.
Yeah, we both gonna talk about this. Yeah, I remember. Just even recently, it hasn't even been that long ago, where my husband confronted me, and he was like, I noticed this pattern with you whenever we get in the car together. Right. And I was like, okay, like we're in the car, like we're kind of doing our own thing, we say hi, but you're in the car. Yeah. He was like, yeah, but I noticed that like almost every time that we're in the car together, you're scrolling on your phone, you're engaged with maybe texting someone, or you might be laughing at a TikTok video or on Instagram or something every time we get in the car. He was like, you're not present with me and I want your attention. Like we're together, so why would you do that? And to me, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, we're together. Right. We're together. So what's the problem? Yes. But it was a problem for him. He was like, I don't feel like you're present. You're detached from me. Yeah. And I want to connect with you. Now he may not be, now a lot of guys may not be like that. I don't know, Right. But for my husband, he was like, I want to connect. I want to engage with you on an emotional level, not just we're sitting in the car together. Like it could be a time for us to just talk about whatever, but I want to know that you're here. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that I took that very well. I can't say.
We usually don't.
Yeah. Because I was a little annoyed because I'm like, well, you want all my time? Right. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what? Now I got to stay in tune when we're in the car too, like at the house, in the car. Right. But it really challenged me to question, because I did, after he talked, because they'll tell you the whole litany, like this is the time and this is the time and this is the time. And I began to see the pattern and understand what he was talking about. And it really forced me, even though I didn't like it very much at first, it really forced me to kind of look at myself and ask myself, why am I not connecting when we're in the car? Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on with me that I feel like I have to distract myself and put my attention somewhere else? Yeah. And that was, it opened up a deeper conversation between us and me, just kind of sitting and asking myself those questions. And I got to the root of it, and I was able to communicate with him, like, this is why I tend to do this. Mm-hmm. And so there were some things that I needed to adjust, and there were some things that he needed to adjust.
Yes.
But I had to, admit that, yes, I am disconnecting. I am not fully present. And this is why I haven't been present.
Yeah. Right.
So we both had to make the adjustment, but it was like 80-20. Like I needed to make 80% of the adjustment.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I
And by
like
the time
that.
they bring it up, it's like, well, dang, sometimes it's, if it was a habit, like we talked about before,
Right.
then, okay, then address it the first time it bothers you. Don't wait, a few months until you've already just been pissed off and now I'm done.
Right.
But
Right.
yes,
Yeah,
digging
I can't read your
deeper.
mind. We can't
Yeah.
read each other's minds,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, and like I said, we all, if you're in a relationship for any period of time, you're gonna experience not being present, for whatever reason. And so yeah, I got called out, and I work on it. I do. Like when I get in the car, I'm conscious to put my phone down. I'll either put it in my purse,
Yeah.
put it down on the side, like put it face down, put it on silent, like really make sure that I'm honoring, right? Because it's about honoring each other,
Yeah.
honoring even if I don't fully like, yeah, I agree, I shouldn't, I understand where he's coming from. And
Yeah.
so some of that, a portion of that, it really doesn't matter how I feel about it. It's something that he needs from me and vice versa.
Yes.
Right. So because
Right.
being present takes energy.
Yes. Yes.
It takes it. And sometimes you just want to, I don't want to deal with nobody, including
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you're in a relationship, it can't be like that. Like, yeah, there are days you have to communicate, right? We talked about communication. I mean, you have to communicate where you are.
Right.
And then, be able to say, hey, okay, I might need a timeout. I might need to just kind of get some time to myself for a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, anyway, I could go on and on because,
No, I was gonna say we're gonna have a third episode. But let's going back to red flags and just the importance of seeing them and recognizing them. I mean, have you in prior relationships, we'll get off your marriage, but like
hey, it's happened there too. So
true.
yeah.
Are there any red flags that seem small or minimal, but that you like somebody shouldn't ignore, that you ignored, maybe you shouldn't?
Yeah. I think this is such a common problem that we have as women, because it's like this mindset of, I can help him.
Damn,
I can save him.
Yep.
I can help him.
Yeah.
And I think it's subconscious. I don't think it's sometimes it's a real conscious thing. It's subconscious, like I can help him. And on one side, I think that because we're inherently, like the way that we're built as women, it comes natural to us to come alongside, and want to bring out the best in other people. I think that's just naturally how we are. But I think what gets us in trouble is when we ignore the nudges or the hunches that we have about that person, and we just excuse it away to say, oh, it's just that. And I think that everyone has a sense of, I shouldn't say everyone, because that's kind of broad, but when something doesn't feel right to you,
Yep.
That intuition, that instinct that we have, when it just doesn't, you might not be able to articulate it, or you may not be able to put your finger on it, but it just doesn't feel right to you.
Right.
I remember that happening to me in one of my relationships. It just didn't feel right to me. And I couldn't explain it. I couldn't articulate it in words, but I just knew how I felt. And I can tell you that I ignored it for a little bit. Yep. And what I did was well, let me just try a little harder. Uh-oh. Did I?
No, it's everything you're saying, ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let me try a little harder. Let me see if that's going to work. Let me, let's have a conversation, but I'll just try harder. And then we put all this pressure on ourselves. And it's really, a lot of times it's not that, there's a conversation that needs to be had. Maybe you have to confront some things. And confrontation is not always easy, because sometimes you don't know what the response is going to be.
Right.
And so I remember I ignored it. I tried to try a little harder. And then I used money and buying things to overcompensate for the shortcomings that I was seeing. I was trying to be the overly, I'll do this for you, or I'll help him do this, or, oh, you need a job? Okay, let me help you fill out this resume. And, oh, here's some jobs. And you sit back and stop doing stuff. Oh, the joke is just lazy. You're just
Yeah.
lazy.
Yes.
I mean, bottom line, you're lazy. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I think that syndrome of I think I can help him is, I know I fell into that, and it turned around and bit me. You know, I maybe should I tell this story?
Yes, you
I'm
already
gonna tell
said it.
Okay.
That's the rule
So
here.
there was a situation where I had received a large sum of money, and I had never received this large sum of money ever in my life, in my young life. And I was just like, okay, I'm balling, I'm doing my thing. I had put my money into the bank, and I was saving it so that I could have some, some kind of startup capital to be able to invest and grow my money.
Yeah.
And then also be able to, help myself in the future with my education. So you talking about them red flags, them crumbs, oh, I need this and I need that. So what am I doing now? I'm taking a little bit here, maybe 500 here, 200 here. And then I see he needs this or he needs that. I end up spending almost all that money that I had on this person.
Oh, I'm
wow.
sorry.
It was stupid.
But you know what you bring up, Nicole, is a great analogy of these breadcrumbs
Yeah.
that are there and we don't follow, and then next thing you know, it blows up, like it becomes a big thing. It's like going to the bank or going to the ATM.
Withdrawing.
Take $10 out, take
Oh,
20, take 100, take 200, and next thing you know,
You broke.
you're almost out of money.
and you're
Yes.
depleted with everything.
You are out of money, and now you're like,
Emotionally,
fuck.
yeah.
And you're the one going to the ATM doing
Yes.
that.
Yes.
That sense of responsibility and blame, and like I feel stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt all of those: shame, disappointment, like, how could you do that? Why would you do that? Like, then there's this self-loathing and self-shame that comes into play, And some of it was, there was some ignorance there, in terms of money management and like just basic money principles. You don't do something like that, right?
Right.
But I think when your heart is involved, when your emotions are involved, and you're connected to someone, and you think that this is really going to help make the relationship better, you're not thinking about that.
Right.
Your main focus is just to make the relationship better or help him get better so the relationship can get better.
Yes.
It's not
And
just a
help him.
relationship. Help him get better so the relationship can get better, And I think, ladies, that is a big mistake.
Yes.
You cannot help a man develop himself if he does not want to invest in himself first.
Yep.
He has to do it for himself, not you making him do it, or I'll do it with. No, let him do what he needs to do.
Let him become a man.
Let him do it. And we take the reins, like we take it from them.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about, what men should do, but I think that we have responsibility as well. Like we will take it and be like, we're going to do it. We're going to help you, or we're going to get in front of him, and it stops his development. And then we look up and we're like, well, why he's not doing this? Why? Because you're doing it for him.
Or you get him to a position where he's supposed to be, and then he leaves because he has no use for you anymore.
Right. Because you're the do girl.
Yes. Yeah. I call it the warm snuggie.
Yeah, we're not.
You're like the warm snuggie that so they can come to and feel better about themselves and all that.
No. Let me just tell you this, okay? My husband and I, when we were dating, I actually did break up with him. Like we had a couple of breakups within our relationship. But I remember there was a particular situation that came up in our conversation because it was a red flag for me. It wasn't necessarily for him, but it was a red flag for me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not good with that. Like, it's not going to work for me. And, we talked about it a little bit, but I was like, what needs to happen at this point? Because I had matured a little bit more from previous relationships. I said, this is what I need from myself. I need to separate from you, and you go figure out how to deal with your situation. You go, you go figure out how to work on you, and I'm gonna be over here. And if I'm still available when you come back, or if you come back, then maybe we can talk. But I can't take on that responsibility. And I think sometimes we have to say that out loud. I was like, I cannot take on the responsibility for helping you to deal and work through your issues. Like I can't do that. We're not, even in a marriage, I think there's boundaries there, but especially if you're dating, like I'm not responsible for helping you get through your issues. Like you need to have all, within yourself to be able to do that. I can be a friend, but no. And so the relationship ended for a period of time. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 months. And
that's what I wish I had done with my last relationship.
Yeah.
Give him you need to handle your stuff.
You can handle it, I mean, gratefully, I'm thankful now today that he did.
Yeah.
And he came back and he says it not every day, but often enough, like, thank you so much. Like he thanked me.
Oh.
He was like, you helped me to develop because I wouldn't have.
Right.
And so I think it takes a lot of courage and boldness to do that, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It can be scary because you might not, the relationship could end.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you're saving yourself the hurt and the pain and the turmoil and the pressure and the stress
and the
time of trying to be that for somebody else. And we really can't. We really can't.
How would somebody know? Because I know you said it was different, maybe different red flags, maybe different for like you and your husband, but how would somebody know if a red flag is a red flag to them? Like what senses or spider tingly feelings, you know what I mean? Spider-Man tingly feelings that they have.
Yeah, I think it might be, I want to answer this carefully because I don't think there's like some blanket, a blanket answer, like one shoe fits all for everybody, right? That if this happens, then it's a red flag. Like for me, there are certain things that I know from my background. That's why it's important to know yourself. From my background, maybe, and some of the things that I've had to overcome in my life. For me to hook up with somebody that displayed some of these things is a red flag for me.
Right.
Because it doesn't help me. It doesn't bring out the best in me.
Right.
So I think that it's important what's when you looking at, okay, what's a red flag? I think it's important to know, to understand your background, to understand yourself, to really ask yourself, what is a red flag for me? What are some of the things that I would look at and it would cause me to not be me? Yeah. Or start to behave in a different way. Like not myself per se, but I was with my parents. They divorced after, I think it was in my early 20s when my parents divorced, but there was like a codependency pattern that had been established in my family that I didn't really realize until I started to do work on myself. And so I was like, for me, that would be some of these behaviors would be a red flag for me, because I know that I could fall into that because it was a family unit that I came out of, if that makes sense. So I'm saying, so there are different, red flags for everybody. I mean, obviously there's some kind of blanket ones. Yeah. If has anger issues and he's always, threatening to hit you or hits you, you know what I mean? Physical abuse.
I didn't laugh at that.
That's kind of easy. Those things are easy to identify. Some emotional abuse, cussing you out, demeaning you, those types of things. Like those are easy kind of red flags. Like anybody can identify that. But I think some of the smaller things, it's important to understand yourself and your background and what would actually derail you or take you down a road where maybe you've grown from and it doesn't support where you want to go. That could be a red flag.
Yes.
I like what you're saying. We did an episode, I hope I remember her name correctly. I am D. Simone. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Amber?
Yes.
We talked with her about dating yourself. Whether you're single, definitely when you're single, and for sure when you're in a relationship, that you hopefully have a partner that's okay with you just going out there and dating yourself and doing things on your own. So it
Mhm.
just gets to your point of knowing yourself, what you like, what you don't like, how you want to be treated, how you pamper yourself, how you imagine your partner pampering you, and all these things. So just
Yes.
you make a good point in knowing yourself.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think what's missing now, even with some of the young women that I talk to, and even some of the, older women that are having, life transitions, they're getting into other relationships, is the lost art of communication.
Yeah.
Like being
I
able to,
know. Why is it
be,
so hard to communicate? Like I don't, and I'm not perfect.
I
I'm
mean,
not. I'm really I'm
But
not perfect.
nobody is.
But it's like
nobody is.
communication is the thing that breaks people up, but also the thing that can keep people together.
Yes. You know why? Well, it's not the blanket answer, but communication is a skill set. Like you have to learn how to communicate.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes, even when we get in relationships, we stop learning.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
just go by our feelings
Yeah.
and we stop learning, And so that would be, if anyone, for anyone that's in a relationship, y'all listening to this, right? If you're in a relationship, take a communications class.
Mm.
Enroll yourself. And it doesn't have to be together. You can do it yourself. Or if your partner is willing to do it, do it. Read a book.
Mhm.
How about that?
How about that?
How about that? Read a book, listen to a podcast. Like, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we think that communication is like by osmosis. You're just going to automatically have good communication skills. I'm still learning. I'm still reading. I'm still seeking out knowledge and wisdom and counsel from other people, from reading books, from studying, because I see things in myself that I need to improve in too all the time. And your partner will let you know because they communicate different from you.
That's very true.
They'll let you know. So it's an ever evolving thing. It's an ever evolving skill, and we can always improve at it, but it is a skill. So that means you can learn it and you need to develop it. And it doesn't happen on its own. It has to be something you intentionally do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
The C word.
But the good C word.
Yes, it is.
The good one,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not easy, because communication, it reveals, it goes back to us. It reveals you to you.
Mm.
I was a very sarcastic person, very, and it was brought to my
I'm just
attention,
smiling because that's me.
you know, and but that doesn't fly when you're trying to have a healthy exchange with somebody else, and that's another thing. Like these little uh areas in ourselves, in our communication, that we might see that we don't acknowledge or we don't work on, those things can become blinders to where somebody else might be, if that makes sense. Because if you're not working on yourself and you're not like, okay, if I'm clear about me, you can usually see if someone is not clear. Like when you're clear about, you have goals and you're clear about the direction you're going, when you meet somebody who's not, you can spot them.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. You'll be like,
Right.
oh, wow. Okay. Why? Because you have spent the time going through the process. So when we don't acknowledge these things in ourselves, and the communication or whatever patterns that we notice about ourselves, and we just ignore them, it's going to be easy to ignore it in somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I did a guy who after I did so I get paid once a month from my employer, and I was like, damn, why am I broke so quickly? Like
So,
by week 2 or 3 of the month. So I did a whole expenses analysis, 5 years worth. And I found out where my money is going. It's going out to eat and Target. Sorry. So I was like, oh, all right, okay, these are the adjustments I'm going to make. Fast forward a year, maybe 2. I meet this guy, the hairstylist, Amber might remember. And I watched him spend his money, and I was like, why are you spending $7,000 on an old Range Rover? And your car functions just well. It's just fine. But you're gonna go and spend $6,000-$7,000 on what seems to be a new car to you, but year-wise, it's not. The car wasn't that well kept. He ended up spending another 3 G's to repair the car. But I saw those signs of how he manages his money, and I was just like, this ain't gonna cut it. And then he called me a bitch, and I was like, we're done for sure.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, you already knew that was
right.
That was a
right.
I mean, the hell.
No, no. But those are some of the things, like you said, right? For you, it wasn't gonna cut it because you saw these patterns. Right. And I think that it's okay to say, no, this is a red flag for me.
Yes.
Like, I think it's okay to say that.
Yeah.
No, you're not looking for the perfect person. You're not trying to be, we're not perfect. Of course, there's always areas that you're going to have to grow in. But I think it's okay to say, no, this is a red flag. Like with my situation, it was a red flag for me. I was like, and I was not willing to compromise. I brought this situation up to other people, other women. And they're like, girl, why don't you just give him a chance? Well, for you, that would have been okay, but not for me.
Right.
There you go.
Any closing words for women or men that are feeling and seeing the red flags, but not sure what steps to take to either get out or, changes?
Yeah. I think first, just being honest with yourself, because when we see them, we can talk ourselves out of them and act like it's really not especially if it's something that's severe or bad or unhealthy, that's damaging to you and where you're trying to go in the relationship. I think it's just being honest with yourself. I think that's the first step, is being honest with yourself. No filter, no, but they're a nice person, but he or she's a good person.
Right.
That's great.
For somebody else.
Right. But I think that you have to be honest with yourself and don't excuse it away. And what you're seeing, recognize it for what it really is. If they're a liar, they're a liar. You'd be like, no, they lie a lot. Right? That's a red flag.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a big
right?
red flag.
Yeah.
They don't give you the whole truth. Like, you find out later different pieces of the story. Like, face it and be honest with yourself. No, that person does lie. Not, well, it's not that bad.
Right.
Don't minimize what you're seeing.
Or what you're deserving.
And absolutely. Yes. Especially, and here's the thing that, especially when you've done a lot of work yourself.
Yep.
Yes.
You don't want to go back.
Don't settle. And sometimes that settling comes because, we get frustrated and tired of waiting, or like, dang, when is it going to be my turn?
Sure.
And then we just say, well, F it, whatever. We not doing, I'm just gonna, he seems nice.
Right. Or they're in it and they feel dependent, monetarily sometimes too, in a relationship, in a marriage.
Yes. And that's part 3.
Yeah.
So the very first thing I would say is just to be honest with yourself and don't excuse away what you're seeing. Call it for what it is. And that's the starting point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let's take one step. That's the first step. There's the next one will be revealed once you're honest, because when you're honest, it opens up a whole door of reality to you.
And that first step's usually the hardest part.
Very hard.
Everything else I think would be easy, but that first step is the hardest part.
That's the hardest one. But once you're honest and you're calling it for what it really is, the next step will reveal itself, and you'll be able to make the right decisions for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Love, love, love the nuggets that you always give us here.
I love y'all.
Yes. Yes.
Good stuff.
Where can everybody find you?
Well, this is an amazing podcast, and we are podcasters in this world in these streets. So you can find me at Take Action Podcast Show on Instagram. And for any other inspiration, if you want to connect with me personally, I am Nicole Simmons on Instagram. I talk about kind of the same things, being your best self. I'm into fitness, so you'll see some of that too. But at Take
Yes,
Action
you will.
Podcast.
Yes, you will. And that's the whole, yes. That's my
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But yes, at Take Action Podcast Show is where they can connect with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you.
Yes, love it.
Yes, everybody, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, please comment below. We like the interaction. Or if you have another topic that you'd like the three of us to discuss at some point, let us know. We'll do a follow-up. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.